There comes a moment in life when the curtain falls, when the illusions you have clung to for years dissolve into thin air, and you are left staring at a raw, unpolished truth that shakes you to your core. No one truly cares about your struggles, your failures, your sleepless nights, your silent tears. This realization does not come gently, it is not delivered with kindness, but with the cold weight of reality pressing against your chest. People are too consumed by their own battles, their own insecurities, their own fragile survival to endlessly invest in yours. And while this may feel isolating at first, while it may sting like salt poured onto an open wound, it is in fact one of the most liberating truths a human being can ever embrace. For when you accept that no one is coming to save you, when you accept that the world owes you nothing, when you accept that the crowd is not here to cheer your every step, you stop waiting. You stop begging. You stop relying on external approval to give meaning to your existence. You awaken to a power that Stoicism has taught for centuries. The only true control you have lies within your mind, your actions, your choices. The world is indifferent, yes, but indifference is freedom. Indifference is neutrality. Indifference is the blank canvas upon which you can paint your life with courage, resilience, and self-mastery. Most people waste their energy hoping others will notice their pain, hoping society will pause to acknowledge their suffering. They broadcast their wounds, begging for sympathy, waiting for validation. But the Stoics warned us long ago, do not confuse compassion with responsibility. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that the universe is vast, and the affairs of men are like dust carried on the wind, small, fleeting, inconsequential in the grand scheme. And instead of cursing this truth, instead of resenting it, you must learn to embrace it. Because once you stop expecting others to fix you, once you stop waiting for the world to care, you unlock an incredible force, self-reliance. You begin to build a character that cannot be broken by neglect, by rejection, by indifference. When no one cares, you stop living for applause and begin living for principle. You stop moving with the winds of opinion and begin standing like an oak, rooted in your own philosophy. Acceptance of indifference is not despair, it is the beginning of strength. It is the door through which freedom enters your soul. The truth that no one cares is not meant to harden your heart into bitterness. That would be weakness disguised as strength. Rather, it is meant to clarify your vision, to strip away the illusions that cloud your judgment. For too long, people live enslaved by the need to be noticed. They perform not for excellence, but for attention. They suffer not because life is cruel, but because they insist that others must acknowledge their suffering. But what if you remove that demand entirely? What if you release the idea that anyone owes you recognition? Suddenly, the game changes. Suddenly, your actions become pure, untainted by the craving for external validation. You work not to be admired, but to fulfill your duty to yourself and to the order of life. You persevere not because someone is watching, but because excellence itself is worth pursuing. This is the Stoic path, to anchor your worth not in applause, but in virtue, not in pity, but in strength, not in being cared for, but in caring for your own soul. When you accept that no one cares, you discover a deeper care, the care you give yourself, the discipline you forge, the resilience you nurture. And that is a kind of care far more enduring than the fleeting attention of others. Look around at the world. Every individual is walking through their own storm. The person you envy may be crushed beneath invisible burdens. The person you resent for not noticing your pain may be drowning silently in theirs. This is why the Stoics insisted we must stop expecting the world to revolve around our struggles. Life is not a theater where your sorrows are the main act. Life is an endless sea of battles being fought in silence. And if you cling to the belief that people must notice you, you will suffer disappointment after disappointment. But if you embrace the truth that people are too absorbed in their own trials to invest deeply in yours, you are freed. You stop demanding attention, and instead, you learn to give it to yourself. You begin cultivating inner wealth, inner stability, inner strength. The external world becomes a noisy backdrop, while you focus on mastering your own mind. This does not mean rejecting human connection, it means rejecting dependency. It means interacting from strength, not weakness, from choice, not need. When no one cares, you are free to build yourself into someone who no longer needs them to. And that, paradoxically, is when others begin to notice, not because you begged for their care, but because you no longer require it. Freedom is a terrifying gift. Most people say they want it, but when it is placed in their hands, they recoil, because true freedom means responsibility. And when you accept that no one cares, you step into the rawest form of freedom, the knowledge that your life is entirely yours to shape or squander. There is no hidden hand, no safety net, no invisible audience cheering you forward. The applause you imagine in your head is nothing but an echo of your own longing. When you grasp this truth, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to despair: if no one cares, then nothing matters. The other path leads to greatness: if no one cares, then I am free to create meaning for myself. The Stoics always pointed us to they urged us to treat indifference not as abandonment, but as liberation. If the universe does not care, then you are unshackled from its expectations. If the crowd does not care, then you are free from the tyranny of its opinion. This is the kind of freedom Marcus Aurelius wrote about: freedom from needing approval, freedom from craving pity, freedom from bending to the desires of the masses. The weight is heavy, yes, but it is yours to carry, and once you choose to bear it with dignity, you become unstoppable. Think of how much of your suffering has come not from reality itself, but from the stories you told yourself about other people's opinions. How many nights have you stayed awake, imagining what others thought of you? How many times have you replayed conversations in your head, twisting yourself into knots, worrying about judgments that, in truth, were never even spoken? This is the poison of dependency. This is the prison built by caring too much about whether others care. And when you finally realize that most people are not thinking about you at all, that they are too busy worrying about themselves, you are suddenly free of this prison. You begin to see that the weight you carried was imaginary, a phantom burden. Epictetus taught that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of them. And often, the interpretation that tortures us most is the belief that everyone is watching, everyone is judging, everyone cares. Strip away that illusion, and life becomes lighter. You act because it aligns with your values, not because it pleases the crowd. You speak because it is true, not because it wins approval. You suffer because suffering is part of life, not because you demand that someone notice it. And in this clarity, you discover an astonishing peace. The paradox is this: when you stop craving that others care, you begin to live in a way that naturally commands respect. Indifference to opinion breeds authenticity. And authenticity is rare, which makes it powerful. When a man or woman acts not out of hunger for validation but out of alignment with their deepest principles, they radiate something untouchable. They no longer bend at every gust of social pressure. They no longer chase applause like a starving dog chasing scraps. They stand firm, and in that firmness, others take notice, not because they asked for it, but because strength cannot help but shine. The Stoics never preached isolation for the sake of pride. They preached inner independence so that relationships, when they happen, are genuine and not corrupted by neediness. If you live always craving care, your relationships are chains. If you live fully independent, your relationships are choices. And choices are far stronger than chains. When you accept that no one cares, your interactions with others transform. You no longer beg for recognition, you bring value, you offer strength, you share presence without demand. And ironically, that is when people begin to truly respect you, because respect flows to those who do not chase it. But make no mistake, this realization requires courage. The mind resists it because the ego thrives on attention. The child within you still cries out to be comforted, still longs to be noticed, still fears abandonment. To accept that no one cares feels, at first, like being dropped into an abyss. But the Stoics remind us that this abyss is an illusion. You are not abandoned, you are free. You are not ignored, you are given the chance to write your own story. And if you have the strength to endure the silence, if you can withstand the absence of applause, you will find a deeper voice rising within you, the voice of your true self. This is the moment where you stop performing and start living. Where you stop begging for acknowledgement and start building an inner fortress. Where you stop needing others to heal you and begin. The freedom is heavy, yes, but once you learn to carry it, the world can no longer control you. You belong to yourself, and in belonging to yourself, you finally discover the unshakable strength the Stoics promised. Illusions die hard. From childhood, you were fed the belief that someone would always be there to care, to pick you up when you fall, to protect you from the cruelty of the world. Parents, teachers, friends, society, they all fed this narrative because it sounds comforting, and comfort is easier than truth. But life eventually rips away the veil. You discover that most people cannot even carry their own burdens, let alone yours. You discover that promises fade, attention drifts, and sympathy is fleeting. And in that moment, you face a choice. You can either collapse under the disappointment, crying that life is unfair, or you can strip yourself of the illusion and step into the power of self-reliance. The Stoics taught us to welcome the death of illusion, because illusion is the root of suffering. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and much of that suffering comes from imagining a world that will care for us when, in truth, it cannot. When the illusion dies, you are left with clarity. And clarity, though painful at first, is strength. It forces you to stop waiting and start acting. It forces you to see yourself not as a victim of neglect, but as the sole architect of your destiny. This is not cruelty. This is liberation. Once you embrace this truth, something extraordinary happens. You stop being offended by the world's indifference. You stop taking it personally that others do not notice your struggles. You stop resenting that society continues spinning even while you are in pain. You see it instead as a universal law, as natural as gravity. The world does not pause for anyone, and that is what makes it fair. You are not singled out for neglect, everyone is subjected to the same indifference. And rather than crushing you, this realization strengthens you. Because if no one cares, then your power is measured not by their reaction, but by your own action. Every step you take is yours. Every victory you claim is yours. Every battle you fight and endure is yours. This creates a deep sense of ownership that nothing can replace. It is no longer about what others see or say, it is about what you choose to build. The pain that once felt like abandonment now transforms into an engine. It pushes you to develop discipline, to cultivate resilience, to sharpen your character. When no one cares, everything changes, because at last, you stop wasting energy begging for attention and begin pouring it into creation. Consider how powerful you become when you no longer rely on others for validation. Imagine waking up and no longer thinking, who noticed me? Who cared for me? Who approved of me? Instead, you rise with the question, what can I control today? What can I build, who can I become, how can I live in accordance with virtue? This is the Stoic shift from weakness to strength. Most people live their lives enslaved by external recognition, like puppets dancing for invisible strings. But when you accept that the audience has never cared, you cut the strings. You become the master of your own performance. This is the essence of inner freedom. You stop being consumed by gossip, because gossip It is important to understand, however, that this acceptance does not turn you into a cold, emotionless being. Stoicism is not about erasing love or friendship or connection, it is about purifying them. When you no longer depend on others to care for your survival, your relationships become authentic. You no longer cling to people out of desperation, trying to squeeze care from them like a beggar. Instead, you approach relationships from abundance. You have already accepted reality, you have already built inner strength, and therefore, any care you receive from others is a gift, not a necessity. This transforms love into something beautiful, it is chosen, not demanded. It transforms friendship into something noble, it is mutual respect, not mutual dependency. It transforms connection into something strong, it is based on truth, not illusion. By accepting that no one owes you care, you become capable of appreciating care when it does appear, without clinging to it, without fearing its loss. This is how the Stoic lives, not bitter, but grateful, not needy, but abundant, not cold, but clear. And in this clarity, you walk through life untouchable, because you have already faced the truth most people spend their whole lives running from. When you finally accept that no one cares, you enter a state of profound clarity that most people never reach. It is as if you have been carrying a heavy chain your whole life, the chain of expectation, of hoping, of waiting for others to notice, and suddenly, you drop it. You stand taller. You breathe deeper. You no longer drag behind you the invisible weight of they should care, they must care, why don't they care? And in this release, you discover an energy that had always been there, but had been shackled by disappointment. You begin to see life as it is, not as you wished it to be. The world is indifferent, yes, but indifference is not hostility. It is simply neutrality. It is the blank stage upon which you write your story. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote, "The universe is change, life is opinion." The indifference of the universe is not cruelty, it is opportunity. It means you are free to define what matters. You are free to act without waiting for applause. You are free to build without needing permission. And once you step into that freedom, everything changes, because now your energy is spent not on wishing, but on doing, not on waiting, but on becoming. The Stoic path is not about rejecting care altogether, it is about putting it in its proper place. You stop demanding it, stop depending on it, and in doing so, you elevate yourself above the chaos of human opinion. Imagine two men climbing a mountain. One looks back constantly, hoping the crowd below is cheering. Every time he hears silence, he hesitates, doubting his steps, fearing he is unseen. The other man climbs with steady focus, caring only for the summit and the strength of his own legs. Which man will reach the top? Which man will endure the storms? This is life. If you are climbing for the crowd, you will exhaust yourself with disappointment. If you are climbing for virtue, for principle, for the strength of your soul, you cannot be stopped. The first man suffers because he believes people care. The second man thrives because he knows they do not. The acceptance of indifference fuels him, it sharpens his resolve. This is the Stoic way, climb not for eyes, but for eternity. Do not seek to be cared for, seek to live in such a way that even if no one notices, your life remains a masterpiece. What, then, does it look like to live daily with this truth? It means you no longer waste your morning scrolling, desperate for likes or comments to validate your worth. It means you no longer twist your words to win approval from those who do not even understand themselves. It means you no longer weep because your suffering goes unnoticed, you simply endure, as all men and women must endure, and in that endurance, you grow stronger. To live this way is to embrace discipline as your closest ally. It is to embrace silence as your training ground. It is to embrace hardship as your teacher. For when no one cares, you must care for yourself, and that means cultivating resilience like a warrior sharpens his blade. That means anchoring your life not in applause, but in purpose. That means asking not, who sees me, but what am I becoming? Day by day, choice by choice, you transform into someone who no longer depends on the fragile attention of others. And in that transformation, you inherit the true power of the Stoics, the power to be unmoved by the indifference of the world because your strength flows from within. And so we return to the beginning, the phrase that at first sounds cruel, but in truth is liberating: when you accept no one cares, everything changes. It changes because you stop waiting for others to validate your worth. It changes because you stop resenting the silence and start embracing the challenge. It changes because you stop seeking to be carried and instead learn to carry yourself. The Stoics lived and died with this understanding. They knew the crowd was fickle, that fortune was fleeting, that sympathy was temporary. But they also knew that virtue, reason, and discipline are eternal. And so they built their lives not on the shifting sands of opinion, but on the solid rock of principle. If you can do the same, if you can accept the indifference of the world and use it as fuel for your own growth, you will be untouchable. You will not be destroyed by rejection, nor inflated by praise. You will not collapse under neglect, nor become arrogant with attention. You will stand steady, like a mountain rooted deep into the earth, unshaken by the winds of human opinion. And that, at last, is freedom. That is strength. And now, if these words have struck a chord within you, if you felt the weight of this truth settle into your heart, then let this not be just another moment that fades into the noise of life. Take action. Choose strength over silence. Choose principle over applause. Choose to walk the Stoic path with us. Subscribe, because this is not entertainment, this is transformation. This is not noise, it is fire for the soul. Every video we create is a weapon for your mind, a shield for your heart, a spark to remind you of who you were meant to be. Do not watch passively, commit. Stand with us, and let us walk this path together. Click subscribe, click the bell, and step into a community that does not seek pity, but power, not attention, but discipline, not weakness, but unshakable strength. The world may not care, but here, you will be reminded every day that you have the power to rise above it.